Good morning, everyone. Um, Welcome to the stream. All right, there we go. Things are looking good. We are ready to get going. Woke up to snow on the ground this morning, which is nice, because I don't have to be out in it today. But, um, for Christmas, my wife got me it's like a almost like a blanket that you can put on the windshield of your car. Um, And so if it snows, um, then you don't spend a lot of time scraping ice and things like that. So I'm glad I've got that. I've got a couple of things I need to do after the stream today, but um, as it is, hey, how's it going? I want to be a developer. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream today. Um, anyway, before the stream, we were upgrading some libraries. We have a few that we might get to here in a second. I do want to take a look at the eslint migration because there's some interesting things we can do with that and NX. Oh, the stylint config. I should have picked that one up. If you saw before the stream, I was checking out the Angular dependencies, right? Because we do have a potential upgrade to TypeScript, but I'm not going to pick that one up until Angular supports TypeScript 5.7 and above. So we've got a couple of things we can look at here in a little bit. I did want to call out something that I saw on Twitter this morning, partially because there's a little bit of self-promotion going on here. Oh, he added himself. So Nivek has been friend of the stream. He is doing amazing things in the Angular community, and he coded this live on stream. Let me put the link to the site in the chat. Hey, Michael, how's it going, man? So there's the site that Nivek was sharing today on X, on Twitter. He's got links to people's YouTube and their Twitch. He's got Chow on here. Chow has been just an amazing help, and he's a good friend. Should definitely go check out Chow. Web Dave, I actually don't know Web Dave that well. So this is somebody I'm going to be checking out this week. Brandon, if you don't know Brandon, you haven't been doing Angular for very long. Brandon his name is on a lot of really big and amazing projects that have to do with Angular. He is one of the original maintainers of NGRX. He's been doing stuff with that library for a very long time. Also Analog, if you guys have used Analog or been interested in Analog, he's one of the maintainers for Analog. And then he just does a whole bunch of other great stuff for the community, and he streams. So definitely worth checking him out. And then, a little bit of self-promotion never hurts. So I want to just give a big shout out to Nivek, say thank you, and please go check these guys out. All amazing streamers, all doing good things for the community. Just it's good to be out there and just helping people out. Yeah. 19.1 upgrade. That'll be an interesting one. I'm going to bother you until you follow me on Twitter. Dude, let me go do it right now. I swear. Did you message me? Are you I want to be a developer? Hmm. Here we go. Okay, we fixed that issue. Um, so thank you for bothering me. As long as the template fixed slated for the next RC comes out in some last second RC, then I may skip till yeah. Um, and I need to actually take a look at 19.1. We have our GDE meeting this week, and so I was kind of waiting for that GDE meeting to learn, what's in 19.1, whether they're looking at 19.2 and things like that. Yeah, yeah. Um, I It'll be good to be in the meeting and see what goes on. A Vue.js GDE. Um, if Google has an experts program for Vue, maybe. I don't know. I don't think they have one for Vue, but I think there's probably an equivalent um, out there. Uh, and if you guys are curious about what it takes to become like a GDE or something like that, it's definitely. I won't say that I'm an expert, but I do have some insights. So you're welcome to ask. I don't want to be a React GDE. People would make fun of me. I don't know if they make fun of you, but they might be confused, right? A good dude, eh? You are, Michael. You are definitely a good dude. And a large part of becoming like experts in the community and stuff like that is honestly just being a good person and helping people out. So you're on a good path, Michael. Anyway, um, great streamers, great site, and Nivek is he's Kevin Kreuzer. So if you guys know who that is, um, just an amazing guy. It was built in public, so you can find it on GitHub. He built it on Street, um, so very cool. Anyway, let's get into where we were and then discuss where we're headed, right? So just before the stream, I updated a bunch of things. We'll take a look at eslint here pretty soon. I'm not a good person. I'm not going to be a fit for GDE. Oh man, I want to be a developer. You are a good person. You have. I don't want to dox you, man. So and without doxing you, it's hard to make the stereotype joke I was going to make without sounding really horrible. So we'll just drop it, right? You're a good person, though. And yeah, but we'll leave it there. I don't need to make a joke about that, right? So anyway, last stream with Nivek joining and talking was cool. Yeah, So that's the one thing I need to get better at is joining streams. And life has been extremely busy and crazy lately. For about the past, I would say 5 to 6 months, things have just been very, very crazy. Lots of things that I have to get figured out, right? And so a lot of my time gets eaten up. For example, last week on Thursday, I was working on a hotfix for an issue at work, and so I was working until like 9 p.m. that night working on a hotfix. Then Friday, my daughter was involved in a minor fender bender, but it's the first wreck she's been in, and you guys probably saw a cryptic tweet from me or a cryptic LinkedIn message. That's what I was referring to. She was rear-ended at a red light, and she was fine. Her vehicle was fine. She was at work when I went to go just check things out. I went and checked out her vehicle to make sure there was no damage, and then spent some time talking to her. She made some mistakes, but anybody's going to the first time they encounter a situation they've never been in. And so, we just talked about that, and it was a big relief for her to be like, hey, Dad's not mad. Dad's just here to support me. And there she is. She's just gotten out of school. She's at work, and she breaks down crying, and she's my stoic daughter. She just always has a strong face. And so she was really embarrassed, but it was just cute. And I don't know. My girls are amazing, but I'm biased, and I recognize that I have a bias. They're still amazing. Anyway, let's take a look at where we are. So Monday or Thursday of last week, I wanted to get into finishing up the region tests. Handled things well. Thank you. Like, I don't know how many of you are parents, but man, being a parent is tough. I will tell you that. Part of being a parent is learning how to handle all the situations where you feel helpless. And that was driven home to me years ago when my youngest daughter, she was probably 18 months to 2 years old. So that would make it, well, a while ago, over 10 years ago. But she has febrile seizures. And if you don't know what that is, basically when her fever gets high, she can have seizures, which is scary. The very first time that happened was around the time she was 18 months to 2 years old. And she just has a really high fever, almost it was like 105 going on 106 Fahrenheit. Doing a quick math puts us around, what is that? Subtract 32. That puts us at 74. Divide by 9. That puts us at 8. Multiplied by 5. So like 43-ish, 44-ish, I would say. Maybe if I did my math right. It was high. Really, really high fever. And so I'm holding her in my arms. We're discussing what we're going to do, and her body just goes limp, and she starts seizing. And oh man, that was tough on me. But my wife really, really struggled. Um, and man, there I am feeling helpless, but at the same time, I can't break down. I have to be, I have to be strong, right? Because you need at least one parent to be strong and in the moment. And so, there I am feeling completely helpless with my daughter just extremely hot in my arms, and she's just gone limp, and she's having a seizure. But in that moment, all I can do is help calm my wife. We get in the car and we go to the emergency room. But that drove home to me. Being a parent, a lot of people say there's no instruction manual, but worse than that, you don't have an instruction manual, but all of these situations are thrown at you where you feel helpless, right? Um, and as your kids get older, those situations become more common. And so I don't know. I decided way back then, right, in that moment, that um, life was going to throw stuff at us as a family that I had no control over. But what I could control is how I reacted. But the more than that, I could create an environment where my children feel safe coming to us, and talking to us about whatever is going on in their lives, right? Um, and I feel like that's way more important um, than a lot of other things. So that's always been a focus of mine, is making sure that my both of my daughters feel comfortable. They can come talk to us. That we're going to be supportive and we're going to help them. Um, and that's the advice I would give to parents out there, new parents, right? And take it or leave it. Honestly, a lot of advice is very focused on what that person knows and understands. But um, it's beginning to pay off more and more as my daughters get older. So yeah, being a parent sounds like an obstacle course of keeping a human alive at a bare minimum. That's actually not a bad description. The only other thing that I would say add to that is, you're kind of standing, you're kind of standing on the side trying to guide your child through this obstacle course also. Um, and you're trying to make as few damages to them mentally as possible, right? You're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes. So minimizing the mental damage to your children is huge. I feel a better person after being employed. Yeah, Jason finally learned that sometimes things go bad and you need to learn to be hit in the mouth. Dude, so I'm learning that lesson too, right? Sometimes things go bad. Um, and I'm in the middle of learning that same lesson. And I've actually learned a lot of things watching you go through what you went through. I want to be a developer. So thanks for sharing. Anyway, let's get our unit tests done, right? But let's first just make sure, right? pnpm exec nx run dash many dash t test, right? Let's just make sure all of our tests pass before we get into more tests. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Stoic philosophers, right? And a lot of the Stoics were Greeks. Many of them were Romans. Like Marcus Aurelius is he's a famous Stoic, and we use the term Stoicism to say people don't show emotion, but that's not really what the Stoics and Stoicism believed. Um, Stoicism, at its fundamental core, is the belief that life is going to be what life is going to be, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's just like, hey, I'm just getting along, right? Um, but the Stoics believed that moderation was key. Um, but more than that, they believed that you can't control life, but what you can control is yourself, right? So you can't control what happens to you. You can't control how other people react, but you can control how you react. You can control how you treat others. You can control, what you do in situations that are either good or bad or right. Um, and that really resonates with me, just with my upbringing and things like that. But it also has helped quite a bit. Um, like, I don't know, my family used to make fun of me over my road rage. I'd get so angry over a lot of things. I'm not gonna say I don't get angry at stupid drivers, but um, you know how I react in that situation is way different now, right? Maybe I get frustrated, but I let it go, right? Um, so that's something that's resonated, and something that's really helped me out. And if you guys are in tough situations and wondering what's going on, um, definitely take a look at some of the Stoics. Famous last words on streams, exactly. Um, so I feel like Stoicism is big among Zoomers, but influencers frame it as being some Sigma Chad. So, oh, I love that you threw in the brain rot there at the end. Um, Part of being a dad is trolling your daughters. And the reason I say that is, a lot of guys out there are going to troll. You know, they're going to troll, right? Whether it's guys or girls or who knows, right? Preparing your daughters for the way that guys and men are, I feel like is an important part of being a dad. Um, and so part of that is I like to troll my daughters. So yeah, I like to throw a little bit of brain rot into my conversations, especially when their friends are around, um, because it's just funny to watch their friends go like, "Oh my God, did your dad just say that?" Right? And they're just my daughters are mortified, right? Because here's their dad saying stuff that sounds completely stupid coming out of my mouth, right? Like the Sigma Chad stuff, right? And things like that. Um, but at the same time, um, it helps them recognize that, you know, guys are just kind of trolls a lot of times. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think that like I don't think stoicism is the end all be all, right? It's helped me at points in my life, but there's a whole bunch more philosophies out there, and it's helpful to understand them. There's one thing that I want to tell you is things happen to you and you feeling bad is normal. My biggest mistake was letting this influence other parts of my life. For example, this job thing affected my diet, my physical and mental health, my progression as a programmer, my network. Everything just stopped when I lost my job, which was the mistake. Me losing my job was a mistake, but the way biggest mistake is what I did to myself after that. I can't even add to that, man. That's brilliant. I love it. Thank you. And there's some good advice in there for me currently too. I really appreciate you sharing. Thank you. I want to be a developer. That was very, very, very helpful for me. Um, anyway, our tests all pass, right? Which is good because that's where we left things last time. Um, so let's stack nx run, and here we want to just run components test in watch mode, because we're going to add our last test for the pencil marks. which fixed up a bunch of bugs for us. Um, after we get this test in, I want to move to a side path of eslint because NX gives us some really cool tools for handling the eslint migration. I tried to do it manually by hand myself and just failed miserably the first time. There's a lot to do, and the tool that eslint gives you is good, but I misunderstood a lot about it, and the NX tool taught me what I was misunderstanding. So I want to show you guys that tool. I want to show you one other tool from NX also that will allow us to remove some of the settings files that are no longer necessary with NX Crystal in our project. But anyway, let's get this test done, and then we will move forward from there, right? So really what we want to do is very similar to this test. And you know what? Maybe we'll just take and copy and paste this code. And unit testing is one of the few places where I actually think copying and pasting code is a healthy way to go. And the reason for that is we can read through this test and see what's going on, right? So in region 0, we're creating, we're setting the value to 1. And then we set the value to 4, again in region 0. No, that's not in region 0, that's in region 1. Let's set, so we set 0, 0, right? If we wanted to move diagonally through the region, the next set would be row 1 and column 1, right? And we can take a look at that. Oh no, because I rewrote the, it's gone. NX CalDraw, no. If we just look at a region, right? And, you know, there we go. So this is a region, right? We call this region 0. So this is region 0. This is row 0, column 0, right? This is row 0, column 1, and row 0, column 2. This is row 1, column 0, row 1, column 1, right? And so if we want to move diagonally through this, then we want 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2 in region 0, right? And so that's the way we'll modify this. So rather than being in row 8, we're going to go row 2, column 2, still in row 0, right? And now for our assert, we don't want columns. Here we want regions, right? And the other thing let's do is let's set this to be like 2, 4, and 6. So that we can, well, first let's see if our test fails, right? If I make this change, does my test fail? So now my test is kicked off, and right, we expected 1, 4, and 9, and it immediately said, no, you got 2, right? But only 2. Did I only get 2? Let's make sure. So let's set this to 2, 4, and 6, right? Because we expect 2, 4, and 6. Let's go back to our test. Yeah, we're only getting 2 and 2 in our regions. Interesting. So now is a good time to track some stuff down. So one of the first things we can do is we can just console.log region 0, and let's just see what's in region 0, right? So we'll get that to run. And it failed. So interesting. Oh. Yeah. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm not looking at region values to hide, right? I'm probably looking at column values to hide. I am. So now if we go back to our 1, 4, and 9, we should see that, hey, you got 2, 4, 6. I really expect 1, 4, and 9. Yeah. So it should tell us, hey, you're missing 1, 4, and 9. So those got set. There it's logging stuff out. Yeah. Expected 2, right? So, but we didn't receive 2. We got 1. Or we expected 1. We received 2. This is telling us the count, right? We expected 9. We expected 6. No, we expected 9. We received 6, right? So yeah. So we've got that. We've got that. We can take this logging out. And we can set this to 2, 4, and 6 again. And now our test should pass. We should be able to commit it. And then we'll take a look at eslint. Yeah, Michael, wet. Write everything twice. But more than that, with unit tests, I like my unit tests to teach me about how things should behave, right? So when I write my unit tests, I like them to be a step-by-step recipe, right? So we can see that, hey, I'm creating the service. Hey, I'm setting a certain cell to the value 2, 4, and 6. And then I'm expecting the regions to have those values to be hidden, right? And so, those are important tests, right? There's one other test we could add that I think might be useful across the board here. And usually, like typically in, well, we can do that, right? So typically in your, in unit tests specifically, right? You want to isolate and you want to do one thing. So we set the row pencil marks, but it should also remove row pencil marks, right? So we can again set it to 1, 4, and 9, right? But then I can turn around and set some values for 1 and 9. We'll remove 1 and 9, right? Spectator. Well, and what we can do is we can also say, hey, in this case, we expect 1 to be removed. So now we expect 4 and 9 to be here. And the last thing we can do is we can say, hey, spectator dot service dot set cell value, and we want to set to undefined, and we want to create cell state column. So the one we set to 9 was 0 and 4. Oh, no, 0 and 8. So we want to set 0 and 8 to undefined. And now we can say, hey, we expect only the value 4 to be in there. And so this test should pass. And so there are multiple expects in this test, but this is one test, right? If you're a purist, you might be able to argue that, hey, first you should do your expectation for removing 1, and then do your expectation for removing 2. I'm a purist only to a certain extent, and then we don't have to be anymore. But you can see that that test passes, right? So we can now do the same thing with it should remove column pencil marks, right? So we can copy this. It should remove column pencil marks. So again, we get to this point, and then we start saying, set this to undefined, and then we get our expect in place, and then yep, and it's going to get our expect in place. And when we save this, we should also see, oh, it helps if I run my tests and I don't just look and go, oh yeah, everything's green, we're good. Autocomplete tools in AI and programming. That's fine. Like, yeah, I actually, if you don't like them, that's good. I personally find them useful. What did I mess up here? This is a good argument for you here, though, right? This is really weird because we should have this, but we should also have our yeah. I must have copied things weird when I set this up. So the row pencil marks has the expect. Removing row pencil marks has the expect. The column pencil marks, I got rid of the expect, and that made a mess. Which means that I probably got 2 expects here. That's a bit weird. I don't know what I did to get into that state. And that is one of the tough things about the AI stuff, right? Is that it can mess up your code. Sometimes it'll rewrite it, which is frustrating. So if I copy this down, it should remove the region pencil marks. One thing where your AI tools are going to be a huge help is in unit testing. AI tools are very, very good at unit testing, especially if you don't introduce a whole bunch of abstraction into your unit tests. If you write unit tests the way that, you know, like they're a set of instructions to repeat this test over and over again, but also as a way to teach people how to use your code, your generative AI can pick up on these patterns really well. And so, the code that I wrote was very easy for the AI to figure out. So I'm not having to type this stuff out and, copy and paste it or remember it. The AI is just adding stuff for me. One place where I believe everybody should be using AI is in their unit testing. AI really, really shines in unit testing. Like writing code, sometimes it is better to take some time and write the code yourself, and learn how the code works. And part of the problem that can creep in with AI generated code is there could be subtle bugs, right? Or things like that. And if you don't know the code or know coding well enough, you may not see them. Cypress component testing, yeah, like end-to-end testing, component testing, unit testing, anywhere where you're writing automated testing, absolutely, Michael. I think AI really shines. And in my experience, AI has picked up on Cypress tests. And in fact, with the hotfix that I was working on, I needed to write some Cypress component tests that did so we had an autocomplete in one of our components, and that autocomplete had a bug introduced to it. And I did the RCA on it, so I know where the bug came from, and things like that. But the crux of the bug was that if people used the keyboard, you couldn't continue on. And the problem was that the keyboard interaction was adding empty errors to the form state. So it didn't look like there were errors on the form. But when you tried to continue on, right, the form just wouldn't react. So it looked like the form was broken. What really happened is you had an empty error. You couldn't see that empty error. It was related to that autocomplete. And so I fixed that error, but I needed to write keyboard code, right? So component test, obviously. But, I hadn't worked with keyboard input in a while. But the AI went in and added, down arrows and enters and stuff, and wrote tests that were reasonable and, helped me. So writing the test was way faster because I didn't have to go do all the research and, oh, my search term was off slightly, let's readjust and write. And so, yeah. And having AI write a GitHub action. So that's nice. Yeah. GitHub actions are another, like, places where what you're writing is fairly automated, fairly, it's fairly, well, when I say automated, it's almost the same every time. There's just small changes. AI is really good at looking at something and saying, hey, this could potentially be something else, right? So even with like image generation, it's really easy to take, an AI that's been trained to recognize apples and tell it, hey, generate a purple apple, right? Versus, telling it to, right, it's only ever generated apples, has no concept of what a tree is or, a cat. and say, hey, generate a picture of an apple tree with a cat on the branch, batting at an apple, right? The AI is going to fail miserably there. And it's the same way with coding. As soon as the AI encounters something that it doesn't understand or has never seen before, it's going to fall on its face. But once your code base is fairly mature, you're going to have enough example tests that the AI is going to be able, to pick up on the stuff you're writing. And when you chat with it, it's going to be like, you tell it, hey, generate a test to, make sure that, when I hit arrow keys, whatever happens, right? The AI is going to be able to go and look at what it knows and then look at your code and generate something fairly useful. So that's where I think AI really shines, and it's going to save a ton of time, right? And it really helps. I find testing to be very zen, because a lot of the thought processes that go into writing new code, I don't have to do those, right? I can just be very analytical. I can be very logical. I can break things down. I don't have to be that creative with my unit tests. And in fact, I shouldn't be creative with my unit tests, right? And so that part of my brain that really enjoys solving puzzles, that really enjoys being analytical, that really enjoys breaking problems down, man, that part of my brain is just enjoying itself. And so that's why I find unit testing to be so zen, and because there's just that part of me that loves solving things, and getting that dopamine hit with every passing test. It's a good part of my day. So that would be the other part of writing tests that I think is good to share with people, right? Oh, you know what? I didn't even commit this. So we updated our dependencies. And then we finished our pencil marks unit tests. Finished unit tests for with pencil marks feature. So I need to stage that file. We can commit that and we can push that. And we're going to pivot here for a second, and then we're going to come back to our testing. And the pivot I want to make has to do with, so if we look at our npm check updates, I always want to say node, but it's npm. You could potentially say node, right? Because at this point in time, NCU will do yarn, it will do pnpm, and it will do npm. Those are the three that I've used. I don't know if it does bun. It probably would, but I don't know if it does deno or anything like that. Deno, I don't know how to pronounce it. People pronounce it differently. Anyway, the eslint upgrade, we've been putting this off for a while, just because I was like, oh, I don't know how to do it. The other thing, I should pick up the latest style lint, so we're getting good style linting. So we want to get these three out of the way. So it was a little bit tricky to do it with the tool that they included. So let's take a look at that first, right? So eslint upgrade to 9. And so if we take a look at this, right, they've got all of these breaking changes and stuff. And they talk about all sorts of stuff. And, they go into why they went to the new migration guide. And if you follow their configuration migration guide, there's even more stuff in here. But one of the things they give you is this tool, right, to migrate config. This works really, really well when you don't have multiple eslint RCs, or right. NX sets up your workspace in such a way that this tool is a little bit frustrating, and trying to run this tool in every directory and things like that. Oh yeah, no problem. Happy to go over it, right? Because it went so easily for me. And there's like, it's going to add all sorts of weird stuff, and man, I made so many mistakes, and I spent so much time reading through what's going on, and I got to a state where I thought it was working, but it was actually still broken. And it was frustrating. So I was really frustrated. So I started, Googling, can NX do it? And turns out they can. So in the eslint rules here, one of the first things you can do is you can just say, hey, let's convert to a flat config. So we can run an NX generate, convert to a flat config. And then when I was in here looking at this stuff, there's also convert to inferred. So we can actually convert our projects to being inferred and using Crystal, which is huge, because that saves us from a lot of extra files and configurations that we need to keep up to date. So let's take a look at these two, right? Let's start with the convert to flat config. And let's see what it's going to do for us, right? One of the things that I always do is run everything with a dry run, right? So let's just go here, and we're just going to pnpm exec nx, and we're going to say, hey, generate convert to flat config, and we're going to add the dry run flag here. We'll just see what it's going to do for us, right? So right away, you can see that it's going to delete our eslint rc.json, and it's going to create the eslint config.cjs, right? We need a CJS because we need a common JS package because we're using TypeScript, right? And we're, well, not because we're using common TypeScript. Well, it is partially because we're using TypeScript, but it's also because we want to import modules into our config. And it's going to update our package, it's going to update our projects, and then it's going to remove a whole bunch of stuff. So you can see over and over again that we update the project, we remove the eslint rc.json, and we create an eslint config.cjs over and over and over again. And it's going to delete the eslint ignore, it's going to update our nx.json, and it's going to update our tsconfig.base.json. So it's going to do a whole bunch of stuff for us that I was trying to do manually by hand using the eslint tool, and I was failing miserably at it, right? It took me a long time to even realize I needed a CJS file. And then it took me a long time to figure out what I needed to do to project JSON. And then I was really nervous to get rid of eslint RC, and we'll see some other stuff as we do this. But let's take the dry run flag off and let it do its thing. So I believe this is the upgrade to ESLint 9 that we're looking at right now. No, it's rimraf. I just realized I've done this backwards from the way I did it. So I'm curious to see what happens in this case. Because I believe we're still on eslint 8. So if I look at NCU, yeah, we're still on. No, we went to eslint 9. Okay. So it did upgrade us to eslint 9 automatically. It did downgrade our TypeScript eslint, but we can fix these two. That'll be fine. This one, these two, I'm curious about because it did change. And I want to take a look at the style lint. But let's first see where we got to, right? And then we'll take a look at fixing things up. So the first thing we can do is we can just go here and just take a look at everything that's changed, right? So it removed our eslint ignore. We no longer need to worry about node modules. It removed our base eslint RC. So we lost a lot of eslint RCs, but we're gaining these eslint configs.cjs. And part of the reason why they went to these flat files is that you now write your configs closer to how they were written before. And there's this tool called flat compat that you need to, saying that out loud, I just realized that it rhymes. That's kind of hilarious. But, you know, there's these things like there might be rules that are not compatible with the flat file. And so you'll see that we use this compat. So it spreads the compat and then we add more configs to it. So like the NX Angular plugin relies on having a flat compatibility, right? And a lot of this stuff was really, really difficult for me to even track down. Just as I had so I miss when the VSC NX extension worked as a fancy GUI for even non. Yeah, I agree with you there, Michael. That was a tough change, I admit. And I loved the NX tool in VS Code when you weren't on NX. It was such a good community tool. I understand why they went away from it, but it was a sad day when we lost that. Anyway, you know, they're updating things, right? I think the tags probably got moved from the bottom to the top. That's fine. But we can see over and over again, it's moving our CJS files. And it's basically the same stuff over and over again, right? Projects we're removing, we're converting it to the new style. So we can see that over and over again, but the last ones are project JSON didn't actually change. NX JSON looks like it got reformatted. Oh, it needed to add the eslint config. Package JSON, it added in the eslint RC and eslint JS. And these two probably, yeah, so TypeScript eslint. So eslint went to 9.8, TypeScript eslint went to there. Oh, so I no longer need the plugin and the parser. That's a good one to know. So we added a couple of packages. Right, so like the eslint was updated. TypeScript eslint. It removed a couple of packages, but right, so we needed a couple of things added. Then in the tsconfig base, nothing changed, right? So we can say we upgraded eslint to 9 and flat files. And we're going to stage all of this. Okay, and now we're going to commit these. And then we'll push. And I don't recommend that you guys go this route, right? So my suggestion is do your testing first and then do your commit and push. Don't go the route that I typically go, where I typically commit and then push. The reason I do this is for streaming content, right? You no longer need to worry about node modules. JS devs, when they die, before they wonder why it smells like sulfur. Exactly. Exactly. Why does it smell like sulfur here? This is fine. But anyway, the reason that I do commit and push is it forces me to fix issues that I run into on stream. It's good for content, right? Really is the big answer, right? It's good for content. And so when you're doing this for your personal work, if you want to force yourself to learn how to fix problems, go ahead and do what I do, right? If it's personal, it's not affecting others. If you're working on a shared project, if you're working on something for work, run your tests. If they don't work and you don't know how to fix it, don't commit, right? Or put it on a new branch that you can come back to. But don't put yourself in a bad situation, right? For the Vine, exactly. Man, I haven't even thought about Vine in forever. People still do Vine. The kids today still do Vine. Anyway, let's see pnpm exec nx, and we'll run many, and we will lint our project. This will tell us if our linter is broken. The other thing I should do, because I am changing our linting, is I should shut down my IDE, right? I don't want to confuse it. Excluded files. So we've got some issues, right? We need to figure out what this means. So nx run domain lint config unnamed unexpected key excluded files found. So let's go take a look at our domain lint and see what's in there. So, you know, right after I shut down my IDE, I need my IDE back. So let's go ahead and close all my tabs, and let's take a look at my eslint .config.cjs, and I believe we are looking at domain, right? Yep. Oh, there we go. So inside of here, it's saying excluded files. Not in here. Let's search for excluded files then. So in components, Cypress. So we've got a bunch of places where we've got this eslint config.cjs, and we're trying to exclude the Cypress support directory and the storybook directory. And this was added by me because we were getting linting rules against those. So let's go ahead and we'll just comment these out. Come on. And let's see if we can run our linter. And that's the other nice thing about the flat files is you can use normal things like comments and stuff like that, right? Because they're just JavaScript modules. And right away, removing those fixes our linting issues. We still got an issue with components. And so it's in our components list. We're trying to use parser options, right? And this is another thing to be aware of. So actually with flat files, I think they added another so project service, I think, is the one that they added. The typed linting monorepo configuration. So project service is what we want to use. Project service, if we add project service, it's actually the faster of the way to go. There was another one. There's another one that we used before that wasn't as fast, but this was another thing that version 9 added us and the flat configs allows us to do. So I think we can actually go look at our base config. And in our base config, I believe we can add the same thing, right? So we need to add language options and then parser options and then project service. So here we can add our ignores, but we can also say, hey, language options. And then parser options. And then here we can say project service is true. And that should fix this issue. So we can just do our pnpm exec and then paste that. And this should fix up our linting issue. I'm hoping. If it doesn't, we'll add the same thing directly to, we'll add it to the components. Ooh. So we're getting some nice issues here. One of the things we want to do is ignore the Cypress and the storybook folders. And even jest.config. So let's update that, right? So to our ignores, we can say, hey, we also want to ignore this / Cypress. And we also want to ignore Storybook. And we also want to ignore jest.config.js. Is that the right file? Yep, or ts, jest.config.ts. And that in that case, then we should only get the files that we expect. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's try linting again. And some of this stuff will be removed when we go to the inferred projects. But using a flat file, I think the globs are a little bit easier to. So let's take a look. Did we only get? No. See, I don't understand why ... storybook. And if I just do that, like we've struggled to get storybook removed. And I guess the other thing is I may potentially need to put quotes around my glob. That might be the issue. Well, that worked. So that got our storybook stuff out of there. So the last thing we need to do is just make sure that we aren't doing Cypress. So we'll add, we'll update our glob there. Jest.config.ts. eslint config.cjs. Like, why are we looking at that? So here for Cypress, we'll do that. Oh, I think we can do this or this. I believe that works. Let's see if I remember my globs well. It did not. Just.config.ts. Oh, but this is just telling me that I've got an unused. That's fine. I don't even need this in here. We'll go fix that. So let's go take a look at my jest.config.ts in the components. So components, jest.config.ts. And inside of here, it's got an eslint disabled, but we don't need that anymore. So that fixes that problem. But my Cypress, okay, this should work for Cypress. I don't know why it's picking up the eslint config.cjs, but Cypress support commands. So this is a stylistic semicolon thing. We could fix that with a fix flag. The CJS file here, this eslint.config.cjs. I'm curious if I can just, we're going to take Cypress out of here. It's not doing anything for this right now, but if I just add eslint.config.cjs, that should match eslint config.cs or CJS. And then we've got some eslint directives that we've disabled that we no longer need to disable. And then cell component.ts, we're missing this eslint rule. And yeah, it's rightly catching that we've got commented tests. We definitely do in the grid. And we definitely got some commented tests there. So it is linting better than it was before. No, so it's not ignoring the eslint config.cjs. I'm not sure why. Oh, do I have to add it to all of them? So we're ignoring their. It looks like we could also add these rules. I think I can replace this with those two rules. And that might solve a problem, maybe. I don't want to get too bogged down in this though. Let's look at the button host component.ts and then the cell component.ts. Yeah, so that didn't even fix up the commands. And I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go in and figure out where those rules are, and can't do just like a generic, I don't know. Let me not make that statement. But for right now, Let's just go take a look at the two that we know we can fix. So the button host component and the cell component. Button host component. And this is in the, was it in the button host? It was. And it was on line 84. Yay, eslint doesn't force us to say ignore sparse arrays. And that means we could probably take this one out too. And this one out too. Because it's recognizing sparse arrays aren't a problem. Sweet. Oh, wait a second. No, I need those back. So that solves that problem. And then the last one is in cell component on line 65. We go take a look at line 65. So we had disabled that no metadata rule, but instead we just set up our project so that it can handle that metadata rule. And so now the issues that are there are either with files that we need to exclude from certain rules, and we'll need to track those down. But I don't want to get too distracted because I want to finish up the migration. And that actually sounds hilarious coming from me saying that I don't want to get too distracted, but so we could actually fix this one up with a -- fix, and then we would have one error, but I'd prefer to just skip it. So we'll figure that one out later. But we know that things are working, so let's go ahead and commit this. So, you know, we're committing changes that happened. And instead of commenting these out, let's remove them. So, oh, that's right. So let's search for that, and then exclude. So this one, we're just going to remove this. We don't need it. Whoops. That works. It's fine. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that one. And finally, that one can go. So now that we've made those changes, I just want to run my linter again, just to make sure, right, that for whatever reason, I didn't make some sort of mistake. I don't expect that I did, but years of experience in coding have taught me that I make mistakes. That's probably the one given. So things are working as expected, the exact same errors that we were getting before. Actually, let's do our run many. Let's just lint everything because that's only linting the specific one that I was working on. Let's make sure that we lint everything again. 5 out of 5 failed. 6 out of 6 failed. The eslint config.cjs. We'll come back to that. But these just config issues, we'll come back to those too. Unexpected any. Oh, this is a good one. That it didn't pick up before, but now it is. Frustrating, but we can come back and fix this up. What I want to do is take a look at, where we're different. Actually, let's make sure that we commit so that we're in a good spot. So yes, we want this staged. Yes, we want this one staged. So that eslint disable, I think, is causing some issues for me. Not staged and that staged. And fix up issues after upgrading. Go ahead and push that. Hey, Marcus, been a busy day. I'm glad you were able to join also. It's been a good long time since we talked. I was, who was I talking to? Oh, I was talking with a friend who works at NX. And he was talking about some, I don't want to dox my friend, so that's why. But Marcus, we need to talk to a D. And we need to start thinking about TinyConf again this year. So seeing you today reminded me of that discussion I had last night. But definitely need to reach out to a D, and the three of us, we need to get on top of that. So thank you for showing up. Reminded me of what I need to get on top of, what I need to get on top, what I need to be following up on. If you guys, I look forward to TinyConf. TinyConf is an amazing time. Marcus, Adi, and myself, we get to meet with some of the most amazing minds in the Angular community. And we get to talk to them about all sorts of really, really cool stuff. And we just get to be silly and joke. And it is so much fun. So yeah. Hey, thank you for that, Michael. We had a lot of fun with TinyConf, and we had amazing content that year. TinyConf 2024 was the first year that we really got to deal with drama, is the best way I'll put it. And I guess that's a sign that we're becoming more successful, that we're actually having drama, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, sure, maybe we'll, so yeah. But definitely something we need to get on top of. Is xState better than NGRX and trauma? For some things, absolutely. That's the best way I can answer that question, right? For games, state machines make a lot of sense, and Sudoku is a great is a game, and we can make use of state machines, right? If you talk to the xState people, xState will tell you that you should use xState for everything. I can't really argue with them on that. We're going to use an NGRX signal store wrapper around our xState state machines to provide reactivity and signals to our Angular. And I actually think we're going to have to be creative with the use of the resource function that was added in Angular 19. And so I think we're gonna have to do some creative stuff and make xState work. Is xState production ready? 100%. It's used on some amazing big sites out there. If you want to use xState in Angular, there will probably be some extra work. Jan has been working on an xState implementation for Angular, and I need to get to him because I want to use his tool also. So there is some work that's been done to get xState into Angular, but the way it is right now, NGRX integrates nice and smoothly, right? Whether you're using NGRX Store, NGRX Component Store, NGRX Signals, all of those work really, really well with Angular. xState is going to require some extra work, but thinking about your application in the terms of state machines is going to be beneficial in the long run. Even if you can't implement xState, taking a step back and just thinking about state machines and state transitions and things like that in your application is always healthy. And it's one of the things that I actually talk with my team about at work, right? Sure, we could introduce a whole bunch of switch statements and if statements, but what if we took a step back and thought about these things like state machines, right? And thought about the transitions between state A and state B and state C and state D, right? So that's me, I guess, talking around the problem and giving you the typical architectural solution, right, of it depends. But is it better than NGRX? In specific applications, absolutely. But the same could be said, NGRX is better than xState in specific applications also, right? And there are other things out there, like RX Angular just had a huge release where they made some big strides. And I want to get back to RX Angular also, because I want to investigate some of the changes they made. RX Angular has been stateless or not stateless, zoneless, not stateless. Stateless would be an amazing accomplishment for a state management library to turn your application stateless. But no, they've been zoneless. They were one of the first things to go zoneless. So RX Angular is one I want to take a look at. And State Adapt. State Adapt is one that's been fascinating to me for a long time, but it's one that I've never really used. And so I want to take a look at that one too. Yeah, and that's the right answer, Marcus, is that right now NGRX integrates so much better with Angular, and for a lot of use cases, it's probably your better solution. Soon, xState will probably be well integrated with Angular, and then there's just, when we're managing state, there's always state transitions, right? Your form transitions from an input mode to a submit mode. Your form transitions from, a clean mode to an error, from a clean state to an error state, right? Those are all state transitions. And state machines handle those state transitions well, right? In an error state, you want to disable the submit button. Well, with a state machine, you just give it a no-op submit, or you give it a submit that generates, an error toast or something like that. And until you transition out of that error state, hitting submit will always produce, the error toast or do nothing or things like that, right? Once you're in a successfully validated state, then your state machine has the ability to submit the form, or call your services, or who knows what you do when the submit button is done, or when the form is in a successful state and you hit submit, right? Whatever you need to do, that state machine handles that, right? And input can transition between a validated form and an invalid form state, and there, right? So like thinking about your application in the terms of state machines makes a lot of sense. Yeah, error toast is usually not epic bacon. Error toast doesn't even have avocado on it, dude. So I don't even know why you want it. Um, so Eska says, I use store in my latest small Angular project and really liked it, even if I probably don't even need it for my use case. I don't share state between other components. Yeah, man, that is so I want to be diplomatic here, but one of the craziest things was watching NGRX store be systematically dismantled by the community. And it was tough on the maintainers. And I don't want to call out names because people have shared things with me privately that I don't know if they would want me sharing publicly, just in discussions that I've had with them. But I do know for a fact that it was tough on the maintainers to be systematically dismantled by the community. I don't know how I would have handled it. I have a lot of respect for the maintainers at the time because of how they handled it. They did an amazing job of handling the situation that they were in. That being said, NGRX got a lot of the hate that it still receives to this day because it had such an amazing promise. And everybody thought that every application needed NGRX. And when I say NGRX, I mean NGRX store, right? Back in those days, there was only NGRX store and everybody called it NGRX, right? I mean, effect, right? Store, effect, what is it? Reducers? I don't remember what the libraries are called. I haven't worked with the NGRX store libraries in a long time. But I was one of the ones that was out there. You should be using NGRX, right? And I wanted to add NGRX to everything. Well, guess what? The maintainers of NGRX were out there saying, you shouldn't be adding NGRX to everything. It's overkill for a lot of situations. You should only use it when the Sherry principle applies, right? And I can't even remember what all the points of the Sherry principle were, but they came up with things about rehydration and shared state and things like that, right? And they received a lot of hate over it. Because people were misusing the library and misunderstanding the library. That being said, in your own personal stuff, use it all you want. It's an amazing library. The Redux pattern, while it's fallen out of favor recently, it's not wrong. Having data flow through your application in a unidirectional flow and having an observable, having observable side effects and things like that, it's a really good pattern for you to understand. And, maybe you don't need it everywhere, but I don't know. Learning it doesn't hurt, and in fact, I would argue it helps. If you enjoy using NGRX, use it in your own projects for sure. When you want to use like at an enterprise level, I would recommend looking at like NGRX signals, because NGRX signals is a good place to start. And then when you're ready to get into full NGRX store, there is an easy path to get from signals to store, right? And so, you can provide reactivity and state management at a much more granular level using signals. And then when you're ready to go to more of a global management solution, and when your project fits the Sherry principle, which you can go take a look at, then you're in a state where you can get there easily. I hate Redux in practice, but love it in theory. Yeah, but I don't dog on people who use it like so many people who hate it. And that's a good way to look at it, right? A lot of Redux in practice is over-engineered and causes problems. Like to my mind, signals, NGRX signals, the signal store is very much a lightweight Redux in practice, right? Data flows in, you have a known way that it flows. There are known ways to update, you update your application, and it solves a lot of the issues that Redux was trying to solve. So new project starting at NGRX signals once we are bumped to 19.1, that's awesome. See, NGRX signals is just a powerful library. And it was something that was discussed with the NGRX team way back when NGRX store was being used everywhere. People wanted the idea of component level Redux because it made a lot of sense, but they didn't want all of the global stuff that comes along with store and effects and the reducers and the actions, right? NGRX actions and things like that. They didn't want all of that stuff, but they wanted a Redux-like thing. And that's where Component Store came from. And then Component Store, they made, once Signals came out and we got more granular reactivity, Signals was a huge upgrade over Component Store. I highly recommend using NGRX signals in any of your Angular projects. It's just a big. It does a lot of the boilerplate that you would write for your own state management solutions, but it does it well and it does it quickly. Isn't Signal Store also working on a with Redux? I don't know. That's something I should take a look at. I used NGRX because I had problems with sharing state between nested child components, but finally I realized it was caused by misunderstandings of Angular concepts. I started with wrong boilerplate and made it work, but then rewrite it in NGRX store. New knowledge. I'm not going to say you're misusing the library, right? Because I haven't seen your code. And I like the way you're looking at it, right? A positive of understanding, learning something new, and leveling up your coding ability. That's what I would take out of this is the positive. The negative, I don't know if it's really a negative because I don't know what your code is, right? But add events plugin. I need to take a look at that. Thanks for sharing that, Michael. Very, very cool. Oh, I really hope. Yeah, one of the things that Signal Store and Component Store don't have is the ability to handle events. And you can do some stuff with like effects and stuff with signals. And then, right, but like one of the places where this would have been a huge help, and we worked around it with properties, but like the pencil marks, right? If we take a look at the pencil marks, so like this cell values to hide, we're using an init hook, and we're using we're using a property from the parent store, which we set up as an observable so that we can observe changes on that parent store and call this method, right? If we had an eventing system in NGRX signals, right, a way to handle side effects, right, I wouldn't have had to write a lot of this boilerplate here. I really hope that that's what this RFC is about, because we basically added events to this feature by adding this observable to the state, and then our feature uses an init hook to watch it using an RX, using an RX method to subscribe to the observable and then call stuff to update our state, right? If we had an effects system in place, a lot of this wouldn't need to be here. We could just go, with effects, and then I wouldn't have to worry about name collisions. I wouldn't have to worry about all sorts of stuff. So I need to read that RFC, but I think that's solving this issue that we've got in our Sudoku game, right? That we had to solve with our own boilerplate. And it had issues, right? We had name collisions, right? Because originally things were all named cell value changes, and that had name collisions that gave us weird errors. But then we introduced bugs, right? That we didn't want to introduce. So definitely need to thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Anyway, let's take a look and finish up our upgrade, right? I want to get us to eslint 918. I want to get us to TypeScript eslint 819. I want to see if this is a breaking change, and I want to see if this is a breaking change. So let's break ourselves, right? Because that's what I'm really good at in writing software, right? So we're going to grab our that, and so we want that. We don't want the TypeScript. We saw in the beginning we're still not compatible with 5.7. We don't want that. We want that. We want that, and we want that. And we can grab probably our storybook one. We haven't looked at storybook in a while, but all right. My brain is just like, oh no, you didn't commit before you did this. I did. So this is one case where if I break something, we're going to roll back. And then we're going to take we're going to take a more sane approach. But right now, we're just going to try and drink from the fire hose and see what happens, right? So we just upgraded everything, and it went through and installed everything for us. So let's go ahead and run our linter again. And let's hope that everything goes okay. And then I have some ideas for ways we can fix some things. So it looks like we do have a few issues going on, but that's fine. I think these issues were the ones we had from before. Yeah, they are. So our upgrade didn't break anything, so we're going to go ahead and commit it. Let's go ahead and commit our upgrades. So upgrading linters. And we'll go ahead and push that. And at this point, I've got about 10 minutes before I need to end. So I want to address a few issues. And one thing that I did notice, so let's take a look at this eslint config.cjs, right? And I was looking at our eslint config. Is this the base one? It is. So we've got our CTS and our MJS here, but I also noticed that I added CJS and MJS here. I don't think I want these. And I don't think I'm using CTS. Well, I am. But let's see what this does for us. Because I think I was doing to myself the problem that we were running into. And yeah, look at that. Right away, our linters are suddenly happy again. So I had added the issue. I don't know if I added the CJS and MJS stuff. We can take a look, right? So if we go take a look at not local history, let's take a look at just the history, right? So right here in our history, we took out all of those, but here we added the flat compatibility. Oh, I don't have the history going back because this file was copied. We're only going to have history from today. So I can't tattle on myself. I'm willing to bet I was the one that added the CJS and MJS. I'm willing to bet that I added it to CTS and MTS here too. That one's not giving us problems. So the Cypress one, I also saw. We've got our stylistic stuff here, but we want to tell it to ignore that. And that should fix up our stylistic no semicolon error that we've got. So let's go ahead and run that. And this is something, right? Taking the time to step back and think about what's going on and where these errors may have come from is what we should have been doing. So now if we take a look, we still have the commands.ts. Because I think that is the right way. I think we told it to only look in that specific directory. That's a good question, Falcon, right? Line 64 in the eslint is checking for JSX files. It's not needed in Angular. You're totally correct. So this is not needed. Oh, this is the problem right here. So in Angular, we don't use this. I know that this line was added by NX, so the NX tool, and NX works with like React, it works with Vue, it works, with all the major frameworks out there. And at Monorepo World, they even said that they're looking at like having it work with .NET, right? So sometimes things will be added that we may not need. Like I'm never going to have a JSX file. Well, I'm not going to say I'm never going to, because I don't know what new authoring formats may come about, right? And same here for like TSX, right? So I could go ahead and clean those up, but I think that the next time that something happens, we're going to have issues with it might be added in by a tool that runs in the future. So I'm just not going to mess with stuff that's added by the NX tools, unless I have a good reason to. But no, that's a good question. So let's take a look. Oh, did I not run it after I made that change? Maybe I ran it before I made the asterisk change, star. Um, this has been kind of the bane of my existence, is this issue here, and I don't know. Otherwise, the only thing we've got is some warnings about commented out tests, and that's true. We do have commented out tests. It is specifically the components. Everything else is ignoring this. So what is it about components? Let's look at the components. eslint rc. When I said eslint rc, but now it's eslint config. So we're using the base config. I don't know what it is, but we're going to go and we're going to take these rules. I mean, this is the weirdest thing, right? Like, you would figure that that rule would be disabled because of the ignore rule. And it's only for that directory, even though we have component tests for other parts. Do I have component tests for other parts? I don't know. Cypress support commands. Cypress support. Is it TS? Is it a TS file? It is. Cypress support commands. Cypress support commands. Okay. If this doesn't work, I'm just going to throw the -- fix in there, even though I said I wouldn't. And then we're in a good place. The last thing I want to take a look at is the other generator I mentioned. That will remove a lot of the extra configs that we don't need anymore because we're using Project Crystal with our stuff. Oh, I also want to fix up this legacy cache error. Fine. Take this out. We don't need it. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna say it's a warning. Because I don't need it to be an error. That's like me being the old man saying, "Get off my grass!" Right? That's me feeling strongly that it should be an error, but I don't need it to be an error. There's no reason for it to be an error. We can call it out in a warning, and if somebody fixes it, they fix it. If they don't fix it, they don't fix it. That's on them. We warned them. Okay. Oh, that's JS rules. JS rules. Ignores that. That probably fixes it. I was trying to fix it for JavaScript when we're looking at a TS file. And I was even looking at the extension when I wrote it in the JavaScript rules. I said, hey, ignore the TypeScript file. Well, the JavaScript rules were going to ignore the TypeScript file anyway. And look at that. No unused vars. Cannot find plugin at TypeScript eslint. So this rule here, no unused vars. Well, let's go ahead and pnpm exec nx, and we'll run this specific one. Oh, dang it. You can't nx. Try again. I had to tone down no unused vars by adding in. Yeah, that's typically the one I like to turn on, but rules, TypeScript ESLint, no unused vars. And this is in components, so this one sits in the overrides. And this is the pattern that we were talking about, Michael, right? So here's the import that's bringing that one in. I'll bet if I comment out this line, that goes away. And I think we need to, yeah. So now, right, it's way over aggressive. TypeScript ESLint, no unused vars. Yeah, so now we're to the point where and there's some weird stuff going on here after the upgrade. So as soon as I put this back, it's going to complain about the no unused vars, right? Even though it's there. Yeah. I'm wondering if I need to move this. So if I take here and I just go ... compat .config, and here we add an extends. Um, and it doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like? See this compat.config extends that. Formatting is a little bit strange here. That should be there. I wonder if that solves my issue. I wonder, it doesn't make sense that it would, but could not find TypeScript eslint. I actually think that we can import the overrides here. I believe that's how that works. So I can just go const overrides equals that. Oh, this is a JSON file. If we rename this to b .cjs, then here we can bring in that file. So this becomes that dot override. That's a long ways back. Why is that so far back? And then just down here at the bottom, I think we can just go with overrides. But our ESLint overrides doesn't make sense, right? So we need to take a look at like our ESLint config, and we can see that we need a module exports. And I believe that should just be all we need. So if we go module.exports equals, and then we put that in an array, and then we reformat with prettier. Let's go change our prettier settings so that it also looks at CJS, MJS, CTS, and MTS. So it will reformat those for us now. So if I do that and then save it, yep, we're good. Does that work now? Unnamed key override. This appears to be an eslint RC format rather than flat config file format. Okay. So this overrides. Let's bring up eslint config. Let's bring it to the side here. And let's take a look at the difference. So we export that, ignores language options. Files and rules. We don't have overrides. That's right. So let's take this key out. And I think does that work? Because now we're in a common JS, we don't need an overrides key. Just the fact that we include it means that it's going to override any existing keys that we've already got. And dang it. Oh, I need the star on it. Star that, and star that. And that should fix it for us. I had to tone down. What's with the JSX ones? You probably missed that one, Michael. So the JSX is added by NX. And because that's added by NX, I don't remove it. It's just added, right? So TypeScript ESLint, no unused vars, could not find plugin TypeScript ESLint. So I think the other thing I need to do is if we go take a look here, and let's put the ESLint back on this side so that if we take a look here, it's using where is that? It's in the compat, right? That's not the right one. So up at the top, it's using this compat, and it's adding the it's extending that, and then we're doing a map, and we're bringing in the config, which is adding files and rules. So let's go ahead and add this also. So I think if we bring all of this compat stuff here, and let's bring it into our overrides. And that does go inside of the module.exports. So we can paste this in, and we can bring in compats from Oh, we need a couple other things. So we need the flat compat. Boom. And then we also need a thing that sets it up. So we'll bring that in. Boom. Actually, we don't need this. We don't need this because I'm just realizing we can just bring this in on this here. So inside of here, we're bringing in this config, and then we're setting files and rules and stuff. But we should also be able to bring in our overrides here. So I'm curious if I comment it out here, because we want to override, wait, is it the Angular template one we're overriding? No, TypeScript eslint. And I believe it's NX Angular that brings in the TypeScript eslint. This has got Angular eslint. Oh. They took TypeScript eslint out. That's my problem. Yeah, that doesn't exist. Right? If we go take a look at the changes that were made here, and we look at our project.json, and we want our package.json, it went from TypeScript eslint to TypeScript eslint. So I think here, I mean, the stuff we did here is helpful, but I think we just removed the @ symbol from it, and then we take our overrides, and we put it back at the bottom. Is that going to work? Former CTO of GitHub. Sweet. You found me. No unused bars. What is going on? It doesn't know what it is. Let's look at npm TypeScript eslint no unused vars. So here it is. Plugin TypeScript eslint recommended. rules. So it shows it there in the flat config. So I must be missing the input for the TypeScript on it. So it is definitely at TypeScript. No unused vars, but why can't it find that? Ignores, compat extends, plug in that. Where was it added when it was removed? So we're looking at this eslint. So we've got those module boundaries, plug in, NGRX all, plug in jest recommended, NX TypeScript. I think it's NX TypeScript that adds that rule. Sure, I can run that, Falcon. Absolutely. That was removed. That was removed from the PNPM file. So we can run this. And you are probably on to something. And I want to use PNPM. See, I'm curious about the TypeScript eslint. But NX is definitely adding that rule. Yeah, it still doesn't recognize it. So we can go ahead and remove that from the package.json file. It'll be fixed the next time we run PNPM. But like, if I go here and let's comment out overrides, right? And I run the linter, we'll see that the TypeScript eslint rule is there. I'm just not sure why I can't override it. So you can see we've got the TypeScript eslint rule here, where it's saying, hey, underscore is defined but never used. As soon as I add the overrides back, we've got a problem. And the question is, where does this come from, right? If I can figure out, so we've got Angular eslint. See, I'm wondering if I move it. So we've got those. So we're spreading the config here. We're adding these rules. But if I do overrides here, what I just want to do is make sure that I'm overriding that rule for everything. And maybe I need to go in and read the NX stuff and see where this should exist. Unnamed expected key 0 found. Unexpected key 0 found. Oh, we're making some headway here. So if we take this off, now we're just exporting the object. Does that work? Man. uh, Because if we look, this was added. Am I in the wrong file? Oh, you know what? It broke after I upgraded, right? Shouldn't I see the change? That's me renaming the file, but so like this overrides file here that I'm requiring. Oh, here it is. I removed it right here. And I'm adding the overrides back here in the mapping. That's using HTML. We definitely want the TS files. Where do we use the TypeScript eslint? This is the problem that it's complaining about here. It can't find these TypeScript eslint rules. That should fix the I should fix that, but here, where is my overrides? By commenting that out, I think we've solved our issue, but we haven't. Yeah, so now it's all warnings, right? So our overrides is definitely it's a problem, but I don't know. Like if we were to put it here, do I need to spread the, that might be the other issue is, yeah, so we don't need the spread operator there, but it just can't find TypeScript eslint. Let's look at the docs. Is there a migration docs contributing? So we got eslint plugin, but we got type utils. Rules declared in TypeScript eslint use these. This package is the main entry point that you can use to our tooling to consume our eslint. This package exports the following: a utility function creating tight, safe, flat configs. So we install that. You remove those. Ah. So they changed their namespace, but they recommend that you export it as that. You might use how you might use our tooling with flat configs. Enables our plugin, our parser, and type-aware linting with a few of our popular type-aware rules. So they do export the plugin again here. So let's go look at this base one. Oh, see, look right here. We don't have the TypeScript ESLint. So if we were to make this change, I think it would help. So if we import TS ESLint from TypeScript ESLint, and then in the plugins, I export it. So const TS ESLint equals require TypeScript ESLint. And then here, if in my plugins, I just do at TypeScript -ESLint, and we make this the TS ESLint .plugin. And I misspelled TypeScript here. Right, and so now it knows what plugin to use for TypeScript ESLint. So now my rules should work. TS ESLint BS, yes, very much. But at least you're getting to see me struggle through this. I went over by a half hour, and yes, look at that. Look at that. That fixed our issue. So reading the documentation instead of trying to struggle and, move stuff around fixed our issue. We've got some other, so like this subject and Cypress, really? I'm going to worry about the Cypress stuff later. Let's just make sure that we run many and we linked it, and then we're going to call it good. And we'll figure out that linting issue next time. I didn't get a chance to get to the config removal either. We'll take a look at that next time also. Hopefully on Tuesday. I don't think I have anything that I'm aware of yet going on Tuesday. So yeah, the only error we've got is with the Cypress commands, which is annoying. And oh, we can fix that one. We can easily fix this one. In our overrides, error this. We can also say, hey, this ignores And we just want it to ignore */ Cypress/support. And that should fix that issue, right? So if we run that, we've now told it to ignore that file. And then all we should have is warnings. Oh, come on. We'll try that. And then I definitely need to end. Gotta go get some stuff done. There we go. There we go. So now all we've got is warnings. And if we run it across everything, we should just have warnings. And we managed to fix everything up. So Michael, for your upgrade, there will probably be some rough spots, but it looks like in the end we got there. Things are working as expected. The plugin export was an important one to learn. So thank you guys for just working with me through that one. And thank you, Falcon, for your idea too. I always appreciate a separate pair of eyes, and it's always helpful. Can you understand how that TypeScript eslint issue was fixed? Yeah, let me do that really quick, and then we'll go ahead and end. Okay. So the way I fixed it is I was reading through the documentation on TypeScript eslint, and it goes through, hey, you just install this package, and I knew that we were using this package because of changes. So if we go take a look at the changes that were made when we upgraded, we can see in the package.json that they added eslint RC and eslint JS, but they also removed the @TypeScript eslint eslint plugin and TypeScript eslint parser. And then down here they added TypeScript eslint. That's what clued me in that, hey, something has changed. So once I got that clue, then we went and we looked here and we can see, oh yeah, you install this and then you remove the two packages, right? So I was like, okay, we're on the right track. And then I noticed inside of here, they talk about, it exports a flat file, but where did they say that? So there's the usage, and then in the advanced usage, there's this, but then there's this warning. We strongly recommend declaring our plugin with the namespace @TypeScript-eslint as shown above. If you use our shared configs, this is the namespace that they use, right? So already we know their shared configs use them. This has been standard namespace for our plugin for many years and is what users are most familiar with. You can choose a different namespace, but then they go into all of these other things. So when we look up here, we can see that there's this plugins here, right? And so they're importing the TS eslint, and then they're exporting the namespace, the old namespace, using the plugin that we imported here. So then I went and I looked at the eslint config, and I noticed, hey, we're exporting the NX, we're exporting stylish, or stylistic. We weren't exporting TypeScript eslint. So I went and copied
what they're showing to do here, where we import it and then we provide the plugin. And so once I provided that plugin, we were in a good space. But before that, we made some changes to our to the overrides, and we can see those probably best here, where if we go and we take a look, the first thing we did is we renamed it to be the CJS file instead of the it was the RC, right? It was the rc.json, right? So we changed the we changed the extension to be CJS from JSON, but that wasn't everything we needed to do. The original one had an overrides key that we needed to remove. So our module now just exports the files and the rules, and then we added the ignore rule there at the end, right? How did I know to do this? I failed miserably upgrading upgrade eslint to 9. So I failed miserably in this upgrade, but inside of here, it talks about the new default config format. And one of the things in one of the rules here, and I'm not sure where it is, but it talks about structure that we're using here. And we use it here quite a bit, right? So we export the module, but we include keys, and then we're spreading our rules over the top of those keys. I should probably add the spread operator back. But our overrides seem to work without it. I don't know if I need it. I need to do more reading. But basically what happens is we're exporting this rule, right? This built up of a whole bunch of other rules. So we start out by adding, hey, we're going to ignore the dist folder, and then we put the base config over the top of that. Then we add some language config stuff that overwrites these two. And this is why I don't think I need the spread operator. And then they're using this compat utility that comes from eslint rc that allows compatibility with files that haven't been upgraded to the new flat file format. So we overwrite some rules with this compat, and then we overwrite some more rules with this compat. And then I'm just adding in the overrides here that I created at the lowest level. So my overrides take precedence over everything, and I'm just importing those overrides here from a CJS model. And so that's the fix. It's a little bit more complicated than, you know, just changing or renaming some files. But to be fair, and this is a big call out that they make in the flat file syntax, this is not new, right? We are exporting an array, and just the order of this array allows us to override things. So the reason that we're doing a spread here is probably to get a copy. So I should probably do that too, for, you know, just to make sure that something somewhere doesn't. It's not gonna make a difference. We'll be honest. A shallow copy like that's not gonna make a difference. But basically, everybody understands that, you know, we can put partials together, and then eslint understands how to put all those partials together, get all the keys to override each other, and all of that. This is all, you know, we're using spread operators, we're using, you know, spread operators again, we're overriding keys, we're overriding rules. So it winds up being easier to understand, but it is a little bit more work, and it changes the way we think about our eslint. Hopefully that answers your question, Dincharge. But yeah, there was a bit of work here, and there was a bit of my own failures in forming decisions here, and a bit of reading and a bit of just experience with tools and programming and stuff. Um, but feel free to ask more questions. And this will be on YouTube as soon as I'm done. If you have more questions, go to my YouTube channel, find this video, ask the questions there, and I'm happy to interact with you there too. But I definitely need to end. I think I'm over by an hour. I am. So you guys, yeah, no problem, man. Well, yeah, no problem. Happy to help. But we will see you next time. Hopefully it's Tuesday. If it's not Tuesday, hopefully Thursday. But every Sunday I will for sure be here. I control my Sundays and I can prioritize my Sundays. So we'll see you guys next time.